Good evening and welcome to the Job Search Solution, the radio program where we talk about looking for a job, changing jobs, changing careers, hiring. And as always, we begin with a prayer. Dear God, grant us thy peace and thy mercy, thy will be done. And in just a few minutes, as we always do, Rich Vinci is going to be with us talking about consultants in the workplace. He's got a great topic this evening, really a good one, very uh, interesting and formidable for this evening, and especially the times that we face. We spend 10 seconds of gratitude. So think of three things that you are grateful for. Go. You just can't be unhappy when you're grateful. That's all there is to it. You just can't be unhappy when you're grateful. This evening, I wanted to discuss stories. We've talked about stories before. We've talked about the philosophy of stories and how what's important about stories in the interviewing process is that stories bypass the instinct to look for reasons to be suspicious. You've got to remember that people are suspicious of you when you're interviewing. That's all there is to it. They're going to doubt you. They're not going to believe you. They're going to question you. They're going to not take what you say as the truth. They're going to look for reasons to discount what you say. They're going to be pessimistic towards you. Not very many of them are going to believe everything you say, and it's going to be difficult. Telling stories bypasses that instinct. That's why we've mentioned this before, why Christ did it, why Buddha did it, why just about everybody that is a good teacher tells stories. But what's even more important is that you prepare to have stories um, in your interviewing process. And I think it's really important to prepare those stories like you prepare explaining uh, your past history in uh, your background, to have stories about growing up, two or three stories about how you grew up and how the way you grew up lends itself to the way you work, how maybe two or three stories about how you got through college, have them prepared, have two or three stories about your first one or two jobs, communicating the idea that it lays a foundation to the work ethic that you have two or three stories about some of the major wins that you've had in your um, business life, and have a couple of stories that are more recent about how you've been successful or how you've helped others in your professional life and how you arrived at where you are with the present jobs that you've had, the past one or two jobs. So it takes four or five stories to really make it good. They don't have to be long, 45 seconds to a minute. They can be a little longer if they're a real compelling story. But the more stories you have, the better off you are. Stories should be short, be to the point, and they should be examples of how you've lived your life business wise and how you've made an impact on the people that you've worked with, the people that you've uh, uh, been with before. So that what you're saying is, these, I've been successful with these in my past life. I'll be therefore successful with you. And they employers remember those stories. They take notes about those stories. they'll take notes about a lot of things you might have accomplished, but they'll take mental notes about those stories that you say, that you have. You have to practice them. Don't think you're going to go in and be able to throw out a story quickly and easily about how you got through college and the way you got through college without practicing it, because it's not going to come, it doesn't come naturally to do. It just doesn't. You've got to practice them. Now, you won't necessarily use every story in every interview. Not, not so. But if they come up and it comes up and it's appropriate to do, you may use at least three or four of them in the interviews that you have. Don't be surprised if the hiring authority starts talking to you and discussing with you the stories in his or her life and how they map to yours. This came to mind yesterday when I had an employer tell me, he told me stories like he was when he was growing up, they were just like my stories. And the employer proceeded to tell me stories that paralleled the stories that my candidate was telling him. And that's what was hilarious. It was just, it couldn't have been better. It couldn't have been better. And he's carrying the candidate on to the next line of interviews simply because of the candidate's stories. And he likened the stories that the candidate told him to the stories that he had about his background. So don't hesitate to tell stories, do it right, and it'll help you with your interviewing. Stay tuned. This is Tony Beshara with the Job Search Solution.